Hi guys. So today we're going to talk about our biomes. I'm going to start with the tropical rainforest, and you should have your chart uploaded. So when we look at the tropical rainforest, one of the first things you'll notice is the dense vegetation. So that's going to be one of our characteristics, our features of the tropical rainforest, is it has very dense vegetation in the tropical rainforest. It is also very biodiverse. Lots of different organisms living there. And with the tropical rainforest, it's got the name rain right in its name. You're obviously going to see a lot of precipitation. So for this, it is very high. And we're not going to put like the exact numbers down because you guys are not going to remember those anyways. We're just putting the general characteristics of these biomes down. In the rainforest, the temperature is pretty hot. So we're going to put hot and humid. Very humid and sticky there because of all that rain in the rainforest. So here is some animals that you would see in the rainforest. So you have emerald tree boas, tapirs, ocelot, emperor tamarin. This is a pygmy marmoset, the smallest primate in the world. Toucans and a poison dart frog. All animals very biodiverse in this ecosystem. You see a lot of different organisms. Our next biome is going to be the savanna. Everybody's seen these pictures of the savanna, especially if you've ever seen The Lion King. They almost always show it like this, where the grass is very golden in color and you see a couple acacia trees. And this is what the savanna looks like for a large part of the year, but the savanna can also look like this. They don't tend to show this on TV shows as often because it is this time of year when you see the big migrations, and that's what people like to film. So when we go into the savanna, all right, we have, when you look at the picture, you see lots of grass because it's really just a modified grassland. And when you have that, lots of grass, you also have many large grazers. So animals that eat grass are called grazers. Precipitation, we have a dry season and a wet season. Dry and wet season. And then the temperatures here are pretty warm most of the year. So we're gonna just put hot in there. How about hot to mild? All right, in the savanna, but it tends to lean more towards hot. So in the savanna, we see these kinds of animals. So we have the lions and the wildebeest and the hyenas that you're used to. This is Hamadryas baboons. This is a Ruppel's griffon vulture. They have a nasty bite. You'll have to ask me about that sometime. And this is the dung beetles. So this is a little ball of poop. These guys are cleanup crews. If they do not go around and use this poop, and what they do is they make these balls, they dig holes in the ground, they bury them, and they lay their eggs on them, and their babies eat the fecal matter, the poop. But if they didn't do this, with all these large grazers, the savanna would just be covered in fecal matter. So they have a really important job in this ecosystem. So the next one you might not be as familiar with, this is the chaparral. The chaparral, think of it as like the wild, wild west, okay? And when you look out here, you don't see many trees, but you see a lot of shrubs. So when you look at this, do you think this gets a lot of water? Not really, right? So when we look at the chaparral for our features, we're going to put lots of shrubs. All right, think this is where tumbleweeds live. And we could put Wild West. All right, this is the Wild West look. Obviously, it doesn't always only exist in the West, but it's a good way to think of this. And so with precipitation, the precipitation is low, and the temperatures are pretty hot. All right, this is a hot environment. So when you're looking at the chaparral, what you're going to have is a lot of reptiles and insects in here, and a couple large species that feed on them. So here is your coyote that feeds on the roadrunner. In real life, that's the real roadrunner. Doesn't go meep meep. This is a Gila monster, so he's going to feed on the insects and eggs of some of the birds that live around there. Then you got the jackrabbit with these really long ears that are good at removing heat from their body. And this is the mountain lion who lives in there too. And then, of course, you got your scorpions. Now, scorpions, the rule is the bigger they are, the less dangerous they are. The smaller they are, the more toxic. So you always have to check your boots when you're in the chaparral. All right, next we have temperate grasslands. This should look very similar to the savanna because it is really. The one difference between a temperate grassland, oh, I forgot to do, chaparral is hot. Oh, no, it's there. One difference is the temperature. It is temperate, which means the temperatures are mild, okay? The rain is the same where you have a dry and wet season. And it is a grassland, so lots of grass. And like the savanna, you're going to have many grazers. This one also, though, maybe because of the temperature, you also have lots of rodents, a variety of rodents that live in the temperate grasslands. So this is the dry season, and this is the wet season in the grassland. And so here is some of the animals that you would see in the grassland. You have prairie dogs, which belong in the rodent family. Bison, these are pronghorns. They're in the northwest United States. They are antelope, the only antelope in the United States. And this is caribou or reindeer. And these little guys don't live in the U.S., they live in Australia. These are kangaroo rats. They have little pouches. They're super cute. So here is a biome you're probably familiar with. This is the desert. Got an email. All right, so in the desert, obviously you see a lot of sand and not very many trees. Sorry, guys. All right, there we go. And when you think of the desert, you think hot, right? Hot. But in reality, it's hot days and cold nights. And that's why you can get hypothermia in the desert, because you get so hot during the day, and then when it switches to nighttime, it gets so cold that you can get hypothermia. But it is the desert, so precipitation is very low precipitation, less than 10 centimeters of rain a year. And so for characteristics, we see lots of sand and rocks. You will see some cacti, depending on where it is. And with this, you see a lot of reptiles and insects living in the desert. There are some other organisms, and I will show you a couple, but you definitely have a lot more reptiles and insects in the desert than large mammals. So here's another view of the desert. It's really beautiful. And here's some of the animals you would see in the desert. So the coyote lives kind of on the edge of the desert. He doesn't go in very deep, but he will feed on some of the reptiles that are found there. Camels, obviously, especially adapted to live in that environment. And then you have reptiles. So here's your desert tortoise. This is the only tortoise native to the United States, and they are endangered. Here's a sidewinder snake. They're pretty cool because they kind of hot-foot it across the sand. They put one part of their coils down, lift up the other, and put that down, lift it up, put it down. And this is a horned lizard. These guys, these horns look like they're there for protection, and they do help with that. But what they're really there for is collect dew as it turns from night to day. It collects dew, and there's these little ridges that run right into his mouth. And that helps him get a little drink every day because water's hard to come by in the desert. Right. So our next one is the tundra. And when you look at the tundra, you see a lot of ice, but not a lot of snow. So the tundra is sometimes referred to as a cold desert. So it is very cold in the tundra. Precipitation is very low. That's what makes it very similar to a desert. It's just the temperature that's different. So with this, you get this thing called permafrost. Permafrost is when the ground is permanently frozen. And because most of the ground is permanently frozen, you have a very short growing season where just tiny little plants grow. So this is their growing season, what it looks like. So little grasses grow, but you don't have any shrubs, don't have any trees. Just these little grasses and little flowers that will pop up. Animals are adapted to this environment. Usually they are white or they change color, like the Arctic fox. He's white, but he will shed and turn darker colors during the growing season. This is the Arctic hare. Notice how small the ears are compared to the other hare that we looked at. Arctic swan, snowy owl, and of course baby seals. So next we got the taiga or taiga. This is the biome that you think of Lower Canada, Upper New York. So when you look at the trees, you see a lot of a certain kind of tree. You see a lot of conifers, right? Think of like your Christmas tree type trees. So when we look at the taiga, this is pretty cold. It's not as cold as the tundra. Precipitation is like medium. They get a lot of snow. So here's a lot of snow, a lot of conifers or evergreens. And it is actually fairly biodiverse. You get a lot of different organisms. So here's some of the organisms you would find there. Wolverine, wolf, lynx, black-footed ferret. There's bears and bald eagles. All right, next we have temperate deciduous forest. This is our biome. So with our biome, it's called temperate. So the temperatures are moderate. All right, moderate temperatures. And the rainfall is also moderate. We have a nice biome, like right in the middle. With this, some cool stuff happens. We have different kinds of trees called deciduous trees. The leaves change color in the fall. It's beautiful, right? We're coming up on fall right now. So leaves, leaves change color. All right. And it is also pretty biodiverse. We got a lot of different organisms living here. We're just used to them being here. So when we look at animals that live in the temperate deciduous forest, we have raccoons and red-tailed hawks, bears, possums, which is the only marsupial found outside of Australia, and of course, white-tailed deer. Now we're on to our aquatic biomes. So we have the marine biome. So what makes it marine exactly? So for temperature, this varies because it depends on depth. The deeper you go, the colder it would be. For precipitation, it doesn't matter because we're in the water. But for characteristics, this is salt water. So this water has high mineral content. All right. And it is the most biodiverse. All right. Most biodiverse ecosystem that there is. And we've also not discovered much of it. We've only investigated about 10% of the ocean. So when we look at the ocean, you can see all the beautiful life. It's teeming with life down here. And you see a lot of different organisms that live in the ocean, from a huge variety of fish. This is a hagfish, which is a jawless fish. That's a tang, like Dory. I just had to put Dory in there. Eels, this is a tiger shark. And there are even snakes that live in the ocean. This is a seascape. So very, very biodiverse ecosystem that we actually know very, very little about. All right. Then we got freshwater aquatics. So freshwater, again, temperature varies by both location and depth. We don't care about precipitation because we're in the water. But features, this is low mineral content. That's what makes it fresh. When you think of freshwater, you think of lakes, rivers, ponds, creeks, all right, and so on. So all those are freshwater areas. Waterfalls, it's beautiful. Very little of the water on our planet is actually fresh water. So most of it is salt water. You do get some cool animals living in here. So here is an alligator gar. This is an otter. This is a beaver. This is an axolotl. It's a kind of salamander that's very rare and lives up the mountains in some place in Mexico. And they're just adorable little guys. And then I got a shark in there, and you might be like, what, Miss Elledge, why do you have a shark in a freshwater biome? Well, this shark is a bull shark. And bull sharks can go both in saltwater and freshwater. As a matter of fact, they come up into freshwater to breed. And so these guys can be found in both places, and they've even found them as far north as some of the rivers going into New York, like the Erie River and the Hudson River. So these guys are pretty cool. They're also what most shark attacks occur by bull sharks and not actually things like great white sharks. So neat little guys if you're interested in them. So that's our biomes, guys. Hope you got everything filled in. And make sure you turn that stuff in through Dropbox. Bye!